Welcome back, everybody. Thursday morning edition of Hot Mic rolls on. Big Friday show planned for you as we get ready for a tremendous weekend. Our guy Mike Zier will be back with us. His team is playing football this weekend in the North Dakota 9-man playoffs. He got featured out west on one of the TV stations as one of the most interesting men in the world. We could have told you that. He'll be on the show tomorrow as Beach gets ready for its 9-man playoff game. That's coming up tomorrow. As I mentioned, North Dakota 9-man playoffs get going. We've got Bison Jacks, UND with a biggie against Northern Iowa, and we'll get all you ready for that coming up on the show tomorrow. So we mentioned off the top, sad day yesterday with the news that legendary Bison wrestling coach, Hall of Famer Bucky Maughan passed away at the age of 83. His impact can't be underestimated. There's going to be a celebration of life here in the coming days and weeks, and that will be as well attended as anything around here for a long, long time. And yesterday, I visited with Steve Saxlund, North Dakota State Hall of Famer, 3-time national champion, the founding man who got the Rumble on the Red going, now 13, 14 years ago when that got started at the Fargo Dome. And you're going to hear from Steve here a couple of great stories. About initial recruiting, and then being coached by Bucky Maughan at NDSU. My conversation with Steve Saxlund.
There's so many, memories, a lot of memories from just, the time I was there and the success we had and all the stories. Like, the man was such a great storyteller. Of all the stuff that we can talk about him, like the stories that he would tell and, and back in the 60s and 70s. And I'm best friends with one of his, with a guy that Bucky wrestled with at Moorhead State. And the stories that those guys would tell when we would get together were just, you'd start to figure out, like, hey, how much of these can he actually believe? But there's some truth to some of them somewhere down the line, and they all, the storytelling and, the guy, I think the one thing I remember, I remember a lot of things, but a line I still use of Bucky's is work hard, do good, party. And that was him in a nutshell, where there's time to work hard and then when you have success, and afterwards you're having fun. He said party, but yeah, you have fun. And when you win, that's what you do. But you expect you got to do those other things before you can party, before you can have fun. And I still use that, and I tell my kids that, hey, we gotta work hard, and then we're gonna do good, and then we can have fun afterwards. But yeah, the stories he could tell, and yeah, a lot of memories with him.
How, Steve, did he change your life?
So, my dad was my high school coach, and he had one way of coaching, and he did a really good job with it. And there was moving to college, Bucky coached a different way, and my dad and I had a different type of relationship. As far as, it was really good. We talked about wrestling a lot and sports, and great relationship with him. And Bucky was just a little bit different, but he just brought a different type of mindset that you needed, where I could still have my dad to lean on, and you have Bucky that would, he was hard on you, but yet he'd love on you too. And I think that's the number one thing with coaching is to get the most out of kids is there's a time you gotta beat them up a little bit, but then you gotta build them back up too. And he was just a master at that. Wrestling, gosh, I remember one duel we wrestled. It was one of my first duels as a freshman. We didn't wrestle. The team didn't wrestle very good that night, and I beat the heck out of the guy I wrestled. So I had a pretty good night. The rest of the team, not so much. Well, Bucky just chewed our butts after the duel, and he went up and down the lineup. And I was like, well, and I'm thinking to myself, what is he going to say to me when he gets to me? And he looked at me, he goes, Saxlund, he goes, you're supposed to beat that guy like that. And then he just went to the next guy. And I was like, what do I got to do to impress this guy? Being a freshman. So but when the season was over, that's when he really, that's when he always patted you on the back, but that's where he really praised you when the season was over. But he didn't want you to get complacent and thinking you didn't have to keep training and, oh, I'm good enough, I don't have to do the things I'm used to doing.
I got to know him for 5 years before he stepped down, and it seemed like everybody knew him. In wrestling, is that accurate? Like wherever you went, did everybody know him?
Yes. Yep. Well, guy was a Division I national champion. And he'd been coaching for, I can't remember when did you get to Fargo?
2006, I got here.
2006. So, yeah. He'd been here since
40 years. Yeah.
40 years, 60. So yeah, he knew a lot of people in the wrestling world, and everybody knew him from all divisions and coaches.
How much, in your mind, is he responsible for the USA Wrestling Championship still being here, in your mind?
Big part, him and Pete Isaias. He brought Pete in, and those two guys just I think Bucky, when he saw it being at it was in Minnesota one year. I can't remember if it was at where it was at there, but they didn't do a very good job, and we had the Dome. And I'm not saying they didn't do a good job. It just didn't work financially with getting kids to downtown Minneapolis and the teams. And when we had the Dome, I think Bucky just like, hey, we can do this. We run tournaments. We can put this on. And it was a perfect fit. So it's a big deal. His relationship with Pete and the relationship they have with, USA Wrestling, and how well they did running it. So everybody comes out, they're running it in the black. Everybody's making money.
Yeah.
So when it works, you don't leave.
In high school, find out that Bucky Maughan and North Dakota State are going to run and recruit you. Did that just stop everything? What was that like for you in that moment you found out they were interested in you?
Well, interesting story about that. And I give Bucky a bad time about it when I would see him after I was done. But I was getting recruited by all North Central Conference teams. So Mankato State, South Dakota State. Started talking to Pete a little bit during that recruiting process. The Gophers were looking at me, Missouri. And Pete came in, and I came up to a visit, and Bucky, I didn't know this at the time, but afterwards, Bucky told Pete, he goes, we don't need him. We already got an All-American at this spot. So knowing that afterwards, I'm like, Bucky, thanks for taking a chance on me. So it worked out for both of us. I really liked the facilities we had here, and that was my number one. At the time, they were better than South Dakota State's and Mankato State's. And I liked the facilities, and I thought, I knew they had a good team, and I knew to get better, I had to surround myself with better kids. And I wasn't guaranteed a lineup spot. I wasn't even really thinking about that. I just wanted to get how to get to be a better wrestler, and it's wrestling with better kids. And that was his number one recruiting, why I think we were so good in those 4 years I was here. We won three team titles those 4 years, and we had depth every day in the room. My junior, senior years, there'd be some days you'd think, a reigning national champion, you're cleaning up on everybody in the room. There'd be some days I wouldn't score a takedown in the room. It's just because the depth of our guys are so good, and we were friends, but yet when we were competing, when we were practicing, you want to beat the other guy. So now on the flip side, there's some days I would beat the heck out of the guys I'm wrestling with. It was my day and not theirs. So, but I really think it made you focus on, okay, how are you eating? What are you doing every day? If I had a bad practice, okay, what am I doing right or wrong? And you sit down with your coaches and you talk to them about it and say, okay, whatever you did today, do that again. And he was a big part of breaking everything down and trying to be consistent with habits.
I think, Steve, even for me, people don't know how great a wrestler he was. How often did he still get on the mat with you guys when you were wrestling?
Not much.
No.
I think that happens. right now, so my business is 3X Gear, and we started wrestling. That was me and my business partner, both 3-time national champions. So that's where he came up with the name. People right now know us as we're the wrestling guys. We're selling singlets. They don't understand what we did 25 years ago, and sometimes they ask, well, hey, where'd you come up with this name? And you tell them the name. They're like, oh, that's cool. I like that. And so, it kind of ties it in together, but you don't think about that when you're 20 some years old and you're starting a business. And Bucky being a national champion, Division I, I mean, hearing those stories and watching some of the film was kind of neat. He definitely wrestled different than he coached, where he wants guys to, at least the match I watched with him, he was a little more defensive than now. He always coached us getting after guys and being aggressive. And we watch his film, we're like, well, that's not what you were doing during your match. And anyway, it's fun going back and thinking about some of that stuff and watching it.
What do you think his lasting legacy is?
Oh boy. Hey, you stumped me. There's so much, there's I don't know how to put it in words. Just the young men that he touched and during his time at NDSU, going through there, and he was really a special person, one of one. I don't know anybody like him. Probably never will. There's he's put NDSU on the map, whether it's with USA Wrestling, his coaching for, you're not going to find guys that are going to coach for as long as he did. Very, very few. National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's a special person in the just sports world, not just wrestling.
Well, thanks to Steve Saxlund for joining me yesterday. It was really good, heartfelt. I got an email in while Steve's segment was playing here. I want to read this here quick because I didn't know this. This is really good too for a certain generation of Fargo sports fans. The great Bucky Maughan was a sportscaster on the old KTHI Channel 11 way back when. Only did the gig for a short time. I can't even imagine that. His last show, he wore a bright plaid sports jacket and pulled out a cigar and looked into the camera and said, "Jim Adelson, eat your heart out." Adelson, his competitor from KXJB Sports, wore the plaid coat a lot and smoked a cigar from time to time. Bucky, you were the best. Rest in peace. I can't even imagine him anchoring sports, let alone being on live television. That is a scary, scary thought. Great stuff there. We appreciate Steve sharing that. And if you missed it, that'll be available on our podcast later today. We'll take our final break. We come back. We'll get you ready. We got a busy Sports Thursday on tap. We'll wrap up Hot Mic right after this.